أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Is Islam an exclusive religion in the sense that when it looks at itself and compares itself with other religions, it believes it to hold absolute right and it to be absolute good and it to be the one and only means of acquiring salvation as far as the next life is concerned? Is Islam the only kind of religion that can be accepted, and any other type of religion should be rejected and condemned? This brings about the important topic of religious pluralism. And religious pluralism is a controversial kind of topic, because it's something that has brought itself into today's society, where people are saying that, some people are saying that, you can't easily condemn someone else and say, hey, you are damned to hell, you have no way for salvation, you are not welcome in our society, you can't live in this country unless you convert. And all of these other issues that have occurred in past centuries. Of course, first of all, we need to understand that in the history of religion and society, we can see that there has been many problems as far as forced conversion, as far as ethnic cleansing or religious cleansing, or getting rid of people who follow another sect or another denomination, civil wars happening wherever it may be, between the Catholics and the Protestants, and between the Shia and the Sunni, and between the Sikhs and the Hindus, and all these issues that we can see that happened throughout the span of history. We can also see that this issue of salvation has brought about a lot of problems as well, where the Jews believe that they are the chosen people. The Christians, some Christians believe that, Jesus made the sacrifice for his salvation, and in order for you to be saved, you need to be baptized, and if you are not, you cannot be going to heaven, and you're going to stay in limbo until you are redeemed by Jesus, and all of these other things that have been mentioned. And so in a society who that kind of thrives on diversity and pluralism, social pluralism and everything else, it's not very easy to reject someone and say, well, by the way, you're going to hell because you're not a Shi'i, or you're going to hell because you're not a Muslim, or you're going to hell because you're not a Catholic Christian, and all of these other things that have been said. And so this is where the topic of religious pluralism came about, due to the fact that there are so many sects and rejecting of other sects, and the issue of salvation and exclusivity and limiting the absolute haqq to be with a certain religion and that. Now, even though we might see that there are tangible issues in the topic of pluralism, it needs to be looked into with correct precision. One issue that's very important is to discuss the topic of relativity. And relativity in this context means that there is no such thing as absolute or absolutism, mutlaq. You can't say that, for example, Islam is absolutely haqq, right? No, you could say, well, in my understanding, Islam is haqq, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I am wrong or right. You might have a little bit of haqq, I might have a little bit of haqq. All paths end to Rome, and all of these other kind of discussions that happen here. Of course, with the issue of relativity, or what we call in the Islamic term nisbiyya, and absolutism or mutlaq, it also brings about discussions related to morality as well, which inshallah we're going to be speaking about, where not everything is absolutely good and not everything is absolutely bad. It's in the eye of the beholder, as you can say. In my opinion, committing the act of zina is bad. In someone else's opinion, they might have a different view, and they are entitled to that, as some would say. So, or someone might say, well, you can't say something is absolute or something is relative, because, under certain conditions it could be this way, and under certain conditions it could be that way. And with the changing of society as well, and the evolving of technology and social precepts and things like that, it could change as well. Maybe once upon a time it was impolite for you to do this particular thing. For example, have your arms, your elbows on the dining table. But now, for example, it could be normal. So when we talk about ethics and morality, it could be something nisbi, it could be something relative. Of course, this needs to be looked into with depth, and one of the proponents of pluralism is someone by the name of John Hick, who was a philosopher of religion and a theologian. He believed that any person who kind of seeks haqq, whatever their belief may be, even if they could be a communist, they will be saved and they carry truth. Because in his opinion, salvation and the truth are one. Some people might reject exclusivism, and they want to be inclusive. They want to have everyone involved. And I say, well, look, you know what? You could be a this or religion, or you're part of that sect or anything else. If you're honest, if you're genuine, if you're true to your religion, then you should be saved and you should be redeemed. It doesn't matter what religion you may be, you should be saved and redeemed. Looking at it from the redemption side or the salvation side, and another way looking at it from the haqq side and the true side, and that's where John Hick stands out in this kind of discussion. Now, of course, there are different ways of looking at pluralism, and as we've emphasized on using the word religious pluralism, because pluralism means diversity, and not all diversity is wrong, not all diversity is right. And so the plural, pluralism, which is opposite to monism, which ignores multiplicity itself, could have a good side to it, could also have a negative side to it. With the multiplicity of Christian sects and their strong opposition to each other, it made churches become independent in their entity. And of course, this brought about a lot of problems as well, where this church wouldn't talk to this church and that church would have a problem with this church. This brought about issues as far as the social cohesion between the churches, because each one was condemning the other. And so they kind of realized that, we need to think about this in a different way. So they introduced, for example, the United Church, for example, or we need to start loving one another or believing in one another. And as for Islam, of course, the being the true religion as we believe, and it being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's very important for us to look into this and say, well, to what extent can we confidently say that Islam has the absolute haqq? Or should we say that, well, it depends on, where you're born or how you're born. And if you're born into this kind of society and you believe that to be the haqq, then, you're entitled to that. But you could be wrong, you could be right, you don't know. And as for Islam, I don't know if I'm right or I'm wrong. According to my understanding, I could be right, but I cannot confidently say with 100% absolute certainty that Islam is the only religion for true salvation. And that's where religious pluralism comes in as far as discussion is concerned. Now let me quickly read out some of the definitions of religious pluralism. One is that religious pluralism means one reality, but the ways of getting to this one reality are different. Obviously, you have different sects who have different ways of getting to this one reality, but ultimately the destination is going to be one. The second kind of understanding, is not that there is one reality and getting to that one reality is not important, but as long as you get to it. No, realities are multiple. And religions have a part of this reality. And each sect or every religion has a little bit of this haqq. It might have some batil, and it might have some, that might have some haqq. And all religions have haqiqah. There's something that's spoken about the transcendental unity of religions. All religions aspire to reach God, but the means and the methods are different. A third kind of understanding is realities are multiple, and religions with the conflicting views they have are also multiple, and they all are ways to salvation because none of them have haqq. But, so this is different to the second one, they don't have haqq, but they represent, in the apparent kind of surface understanding, they represent haqq. But they don't really have haqq because it's religion, and religion evolves. The fourth is that even though religions and sects have different beliefs, they can still coexist and live in harmony and peace together, and theoretical and ideological differences should not lead to tension or violence or anything else, but we need to tolerate and coexist and have peace. Now, if we were to say that there is no absolute haqq, or there is no level of haqq, but it's only apparent haqq, which is the third one, of course that's obviously rejected. The fourth sounds wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But how about the first and the second? The first was one reality, but the ways of getting to this reality are different, and religions and sects have different ways of getting to this one reality. Number two is, no, that's not one reality, there are multiple realities. And each sect might have a part of this reality truly being able for them to get there. Now, of course, when it does come to discussing the first kind of religious pluralism, understanding of religious pluralism, and the second kind of understanding of religious pluralism, it's very important to look into issues to do with distortion in religion. It's very important to look into epistemology. I need to be very quick as far as finishing off this topic. in this one segment. So I'm just going to name some of the things that are key points in order for you to, the participant, to research and look into. Epistemology is as far as epistemology is concerned, especially what makes Islamic epistemology different to Western epistemology. You know, that Hume kind of epistemology of skepticism and rejecting anything that is absolute, and all those other discussions that happen there. As far as fixed knowledge is concerned, or true knowledge is concerned, or things to do with tolerance and things to do with peaceful coexistence, and how can religious minorities exist with harmony along with others who are the majority in the society. Obviously, we know that the peaceful life between religions existed within Islam from the very beginning and in the best form. And therefore, as far as the Muslim society is concerned, you can see that throughout history there wasn't that need to look into the theological foundations of religious pluralism, and not in the extent of rejecting some of the issues that could have surfaced in the Muslim Ummah due to the fact that the ruler of that time was a tyrant, was unjust, and not implementing the Islamic teachings in the correct form. With the issue of the path and for example, verses in the Holy Quran that say, Inna Dina inda Allah al-Islam, and Sirat al-Mustaqim, and whether we have one path to God, whether there are multiple paths to God, to what extent are we able to rely on revelation and wahi, and all of these other important discussions that are brought about when it comes to the issue of religious pluralism. Now, clearly we know that submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very important to a Muslim, submitting to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, submitting to the Quran, submitting to the Sharia, and whoever accepts Islam needs to accept all of these other issues as well. There are issues also that should be discussed as far as salvation is concerned, and what's the Islamic take on salvation, and what's going to happen on Judgment Day, and God showing His mercy to people who did not become Muslim, and where will non-Muslims end up, and all these other discussions that happen. So, it is important to distinguish between social pluralism and spiritual pluralism, religious pluralism, and how we are able to distinguish between these issues. Very, very important, especially in today's contemporary world. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin.